Good morning, welcome to St Peter's for our Sunday worship together. My name is Chris, I'm the curate here at St Peter's, and during our service today we are going to spend some time singing in worship to our wonderful God. We're going to hear from the Bible, and Gav, the vicar, in a little while is going to come and speak to us about the passages that we've heard read this morning. But before we do that, I just want to read to you a short passage from Hebrews, and it says this. It's from the Message translation. God didn't put angels in charge of the business of salvation that we're dealing with. It says in Scripture, "What is man and woman that you bother with them? Why take a second look their way? You made them not quite as high as the angels, bright with Eden's dawn light. Then you put them in charge of your entire handcrafted world." And when God put them in charge of everything, nothing was excluded. But we don't see it yet. We don't see everything under human jurisdiction. What we do see is Jesus made not quite as high as angels, and then to the experience of death, crowned so much higher than any angel, with a glory bright with Eden's dawn light. And in that death, by God's grace, he fully experienced death in every person's place. Since the children are made of flesh and blood, it's logical that the Saviour took on flesh and blood in order to rescue them by his death. By embracing death, taking it to himself, he destroyed the devil's hold on death and freed all who cower through life, scared to death of death. It's obvious, of course, that he didn't go to all this trouble for angels. It was for people like us, children of Abraham. That's why he had to enter into every detail of human life. That when he came before God as high priest to get rid of all the people's sins, he would have already experienced it all himself. All the pain, all the testing, and would be able to help where help was needed. Shall we just pray? Thank you, dear Jesus, that you came to earth as a human being made of flesh and blood, just like us. We thank you that you experienced the pain, the testing that we go through as well, but that you won, that you were victorious over sin, and that as you went to the cross and died, you took all of our sin upon yourself so that we might be forgiven, so that we who are scared to death of death may be freed to be God's children, and that in that we have an incredible hope. Thank you, dear Jesus, and we pray, please help us today as we worship you to come close and to experience your love once more afresh in our lives. Shall we sing and worship together?
Our God is so amazing. His love is never ending, beyond imagination. He's worth our celebration. He deserves the loudest noise. I don't know about you, but I came here today to celebrate God. In every song we sing and every game we play, we celebrate God. Always amazing, his love will never end. So everybody in this place, celebrate God. Yeah, celebrate God. Our God is so amazing. His love is never ending, beyond imagination. He's worth our celebration. He deserves the loudest noise. I don't know about you, but I came here today to celebrate God. In every song we sing and every game we play, we celebrate God. Always amazing, his love will never end.
welcome me. I was lost, but he brought me in. Oh, his love for me. Oh, his love for me. Who the sun sets free, oh, is free indeed. I'm a child of God, yes I am. Free at last, he has ransomed me. His grace runs deep. While I was a slave to sin, Jesus died for me. Yes, he died for me. Who the sun sets free, oh, is free indeed. I'm a child of God, yes I am. In my Father's house, there's a place for me. I'm a child of God, yes I am. I am chosen, not forsaken. I am who you say I am. You are for me, not against me. I am who you say I am. I am chosen, not forsaken. I am who you say I am. You are for me, not against me. I am who you say I am. I am who you say I am. Who the sun sets free, oh, is free indeed. I'm a child of God, yes I am. In my Father's house, there's a place for me. I'm a child of God, yes I am. In my Father's house, there's a place for me. I'm a child of God, yes I am.
Matthew 7, verse 7. Ask, seek, knock. Ask and it will be given to you. Seek and you will find. Knock the door and will be opened to you. For everyone who asks, if you receive, and everyone who sees finds, and to the one who knocks the door it will be open. Which of you has a son who asks for bread, and you give him stone? Or if he asks for fish, and would give him snake? If you then thought you were evil, know how to give good gifts to your children, how much more will your Father in heaven good gifts give those who ask him? So in everything, do to others what you would have done for your in-laws and prophets. The narrow and wide gates. Enter through the narrow gate, for wide is the gate and broad is the road that leads to the destruction, and many enter through it. But small is the gate and narrow the road that leads to life, and only a few find it. Imitating Christ's humility. Therefore, if you have any encouragement from being united with Christ, if any comfort from his love, if any common sharing of the Spirit, if your tenderness and compassion, then make my joy complete by being like-minded, having the same love, being one in the Spirit and one in mind. Do nothing of selfish ambition and vain conceit, rather in humility value others and above others, not looking to your own interest, but each to you the interest of others. In your relationships with one another, have the same mindset as Jesus Christ, who being in nature God, did not consider equality with God something to be used as his own advantage. Rather he made himself nothing, to take the very nature of a servant, being made in human likeness, and being found in appearance as a man. He humbled himself by becoming obedient to death, even death on the cross. Therefore God exalted him to the highest place, and gave him the name that is above every name, that the name of Jesus every knee should bow, in heaven and on earth, and every tongue acknowledge that Jesus Christ is Lord, to the glory of God. Do everything without grumbling. Therefore, my dear friends, as you have been also obeyed, not only in my presence, but now much more in my absence, continue the work of our salvation and with fear and trembling, for it is God who works in you all will and in act in order to fulfill your good promise. Do everything without grumbling or arguing, so that you may become blameless and pure, children of God, without fault, in a warped and crooked generation. Then you will shine amongst them and the stars in the sky, as you hold firm to the world of life. And then I will be able to boast on the day of Christ that I did not run in vain. Not even I am poured out like a drink, offering of sacrifice and service coming with your faith. I am glad and rejoice with you all. So you should be glad and rejoice with me.
I've heard 1,000 stories of what they think you're like, but I've heard the tender whispers of love in the dead of night, and you tell me that you're pleased and that I'm never alone. You're a good, good Father. It's who you are. It's who you are. It's who you are, and I'm loved by you. It's who I am. It's who I am. It's who I am. I've seen many searching for answers far and wide, but I know we're all searching for answers only you provide, 'cause you know just what we need before we say a word. You're a good, good Father. It's who you are. It's who you are. It's who you are, and I'm loved by you. It's who I am. It's who I am. It's who I am. You are perfect in all of your ways. You are perfect in all of your ways. You are perfect in all of your ways to us. You are perfect in all of your ways. You are perfect in all of your ways. You are perfect in all of your ways to us. Oh, it's love so undeniable. I can hardly speak. Peace so unexplainable. I can hardly think as you call me. Deeper still as you call me. Deeper still as you call me. Deeper still into love. Love, love, you're a good, good Father. It's who you are. It's who you are. It's who you are, and I'm loved by you. It's who I am. It's who I am. It's who I am. You're a good, good Father. It's who you are. It's who you are. It's who you are, and I'm loved by you. It's who I am. It's who I am. It's who I am. You're a good, good Father. It's who you are. It's who you are. It's who you are, and I'm loved by you. It's who I am. It's who I am. It's who I am.
Hello everyone. Thank you so much for being part of our Sunday worship together at St. Peter's. Worshipping together, whether online or in person, is just one of the things we do together as a way of helping each other in our following of Jesus. There are lots of other things we do during the week, every day as well. Some of those things involve just spending time in the Bible so that we can be with Jesus and learn from him. You've probably heard me mention things like the Bible in 1 year, which is a daily selection of readings from the Bible prepared by Nicky Gumbel. I highly recommend that. You can get an app, or you can get it online, or you can get it by email. There are other resources many of you use, I know. There are devotional booklets like Daily Bread, which some of you use. Some of you might also do the daily prayer, the morning and evening prayer, which comes from the Church of England, with lots of Bible readings in it too. There are lots of different ways of engaging with Scripture so that we can all the better walk with Jesus. And this past week, another resource came back to my mind, which is well known to some and certainly worth recommending to you. It comes from a man called Oswald Chambers, and his most famous book is called My Utmost for His Highest. Oswald Chambers was born in Scotland in 1874. He moved around a bit with his family and decided to follow Jesus when he was 15 years old. Later on, he went to Bible college because he wanted to prepare for ordained ministry. And by the turn of the century, he was teaching and preaching at home and abroad. He married a lady called Gertrude Hobbs in 1910, and they had a daughter, Kathleen. When World War I came round, Oswald took the decision with his family to move to Egypt, and he became a YMCA chaplain to the troops in Cairo and worked faithfully and well there for a number of years. In 1917, he was struck by appendicitis, and his initial reaction was to not get treatment because so many other people needed treatment in hospital. Unfortunately, he left getting treatment too late, and when treatment did come, he wasn't able to survive, and he died at an early age in his 40s in 1917. He does, however, leave a lot of written material behind, and that was made possible by his wife Gertrude, who took his lecture notes and teaching notes and lots of other things and collated many of his works and thoughts and writings into various different books. And the most well-known one is that book I mentioned. It's called My Utmost for His Highest, and it's a series of daily thoughts about certain Bible passages and certain Bible verses. And it has become an established classic, really. Many people know and refer to it quite often. It's a challenging read at times, sometimes even a bit on the austere side, but it is always encouraging, and it always seeks to build us up in Jesus to be and to do greater things in him and for him. And it was one day last week, July the 7th, when what was written for him on that day caught my attention again, for the reason that it deals with some of the troubles that many of us face, all of us face from time to time, and it challenges us to a genuine and deeper walk with Jesus. The passage for July the 7th is entitled "All Efforts of Worth and Excellence Are Difficult," and it's based on the words of Jesus recorded in Matthew chapter 7 verses 13 to 14. Jesus says, "Enter by the narrow gate, because the narrow is the gate and difficult is the way which leads to life." And about this verse, Oswald Chambers writes this: "If we are going to live as disciples of Jesus, we have to remember that all efforts of worth and excellence are difficult. The Christian life is gloriously difficult, but its difficulty does not make us faint or cave in. It stirs us up to overcome. Do we appreciate the miraculous salvation, rescue of Jesus Christ enough to be our utmost for his highest, our best for his glory?" One of the first words in there that leaps out is that word disciple, and it can be misunderstood. It's quite often only heard in Christian contexts, but what it means is to be a deliberate follower of Jesus, an apprentice of Jesus, someone who learns from Jesus. Dallas Willard says being a disciple of Jesus is learning from him to live our lives the way that he would live them if he was us. We can learn to live our life just as Jesus would by being a follower of Jesus and learning from him personally what it means day by day, moment by moment, to follow him and live just as he would, as if he was us. Sometimes people say to me, "Oh, I tried Christianity and it didn't work." Actually, the call is to try following Jesus, to be an apprentice, a disciple of Jesus, listening to him, learning from him, and in time, learning enough to be able to do what he says and do what he asks, and becoming more like him as we grow in depth of character and become simply more like Jesus. Yes, this can be difficult at times. All efforts of worth and excellence are difficult. But there's another verse to remember, I think, and that's Matthew 11, verses 28 to 30. Some of these words will be familiar to you, I'm sure. Jesus says this, "Come to me, all who labour and are heavy laden, and I will give you rest. Take my yoke upon you. Learn from me, for I am gentle and lowly in heart, and you will find rest for your souls. For my yoke is easy and my burden is light." Yep, it's difficult at times following Jesus, gloriously difficult. There are always going to be challenges and difficulties in life. And what Jesus is saying in Matthew 11 is that the alternatives are much, much harder. All the other things we might chase after in order to try and live well don't work. In fact, without Jesus, life is considerably harder than it is with Jesus, hard though it is sometimes to follow him. We are going to have difficulties in life, and it's actually harder not to follow Jesus than it is to follow him, because when we follow him and do what he says and learn to be with him, some of the tough things become possible in ways we couldn't at one time imagine. Oswald Chambers asks, do we appreciate the miraculous salvation of Jesus Christ enough to be our utmost for his highest, our best for his glory? Jesus is the greatest person who ever lived. And as we learn from him, and as we learn to rest in him, as we do learn from him, increasingly we'll want to do what we can to live out his kingdom life and to bring that to others as well. Oswald Chambers goes on to say this, God saves people by his sovereign grace through the atonement of Jesus, and it is God who works in us both to will and to do for his good pleasure. That word atonement refers to what Jesus has done to rescue us out of the mess we're in and really that the world's in. And we can't do that. We can't do enough to rescue ourselves. That's always implied in that word rescue, isn't it? We can't rescue ourselves. Someone else has to rescue us. And that's the way it is in life as well. We need Jesus to rescue us out of many of the troubles and difficulties and all the bad ways of the world around us and in us too. And the way Jesus does that is at the cross. He comes as one of us. He lives our life. He dies our death. He takes on himself all the sin, all that's gone wrong in the world. There's forgiveness for us where we've gone wrong. There's healing for us where others have gone wrong to us. The whole mess is healed and forgiven by Jesus on the cross. His dying and his rising to new life are at the center of what God has done to make the world come back to him and the glorious good ways of his kingdom. That's God rescuing us. That's the atonement. That's what's on offer. Living life well, living good life powerfully and wonderfully and truly. It's all made possible by Jesus. And that's the vision behind our decision to follow Jesus. Jesus has done what it takes to win us our place in the kingdom. And as we look to him and choose him and follow him and start to do the things that he says, that life becomes ours. We receive it and live it, and others are brought to it as well. Again, as Oswald Chambers says, we have to work out the salvation, the rescue that we have in our everyday practical living. And if we will only start on the basis of his redemption to do what he commands, then we will find that we can do it. And if we fail, it is because we haven't yet put into practice just what God has placed into us. That's what Oswald Chambers says, and I think he's right. It does all start with God, with Jesus, and what God has done for us. That's a free gift. That's grace. God giving us things we can't earn and doing for us things we can't do for ourselves. And that is free. We can't earn it or deserve it, but what we do have to do is engage with it. Do something about it. Do something with it. I think I've said before that this is a bit like needing a car. Perhaps we haven't got a car and we really need one, and We get the most astonishing, wonderful car imaginable, far beyond anything we could possibly buy ourselves, and we win it, and it's given to us, and it's sitting there on the street in front of the house, and we're amazed and in awe of it. That's not enough, of course, though, is it? If we need a car, what we need to do is to get into the car that's been freely given to us and learn how to drive it and go somewhere with it. It's a bit like that when we look at Jesus. It would be weird if we just left the car on the street, wouldn't it? And just looked at it. And it's weird if we just look at how great Jesus is, but never engage with him and go with him for that rest and for that being trained in new and good ways and being empowered and enabled to live well. We need to engage with the free gift that we have. And that's one of the things Oswald Chambers says to us. This is a process, of course, and from time to time it's good to stop and say, well, how are we doing in this process? Are we getting on the way that we can and should in Jesus? And one of the ways we know how well we're doing, Oswald Chambers says in this devotional, is our response to the crises of life. A crisis, he says, will reveal whether or not we have been putting it into practice. If we will obey the Spirit of God and practice in our physical life what God has placed within us by his Spirit, then when a crisis does come, we will find that our own nature as well as the ongoing grace of God will stand by us. Those crises where we see how well we're doing can be some of the little things. Maybe not reacting with anger to mistreatment or anger that others give to us, and even being able to love them and help them rather than getting angry back at them. And it can be in those big crises as well. Accidents, illnesses, relationship breakdowns, bereavements, addiction, all the big things of life, the big crises. If we've been walking with Jesus, learning from him for ourselves, doing what he says, then our character will change and we will become more like him. And when those crises comes, we'll be able to respond like him, have the same trust and faith that he had and which he shares with us. Now, this doesn't mean that we just have to pretend everything's all right and wonderful when actually it isn't. It means fully understanding the difficulties and recognizing the depth of the crisis, but also knowing that God in us and with us is enough and even more than enough to get us through. We know and trust God, and that is always the foundation of getting through life's crises and difficulties, whatever they are. Those crises come at us from the moment that we're conceived till the moment we die. Every crisis is an opportunity to grow more, to go deeper and further with Jesus. We hold on to everything he's already done for us on the cross, his dying and rising, his reigning and ruling. And we learn with him personally, day by day, moment by moment, all that he would teach us about ourselves, about our world, about our life, about his kingdom, about his greatness and goodness. And when crisis comes, we can build on that, we can rely on that, because we know it from our own experience. Maybe you're in a crisis right now, big or small. If you are in a crisis, well, this is the perfect time to go deeper with Jesus and get to know him better. Call out to him. He won't fail to respond. That's his promise. When we seek him, we find him. That's what he says to us. He is available, even in the strongest crisis, even if we are unprepared and haven't followed him deeply to this point. Call on him in the crisis. Learn from him. He'll give rest, even as the crisis rages on around us. Or maybe you're not in a crisis. Maybe this is a calmer time. Still, use this time to get to know Jesus better. That way, when the next crisis does come, and it's when, not if, we'll be all the more prepared to meet it and deal with it. We'll know Jesus already, so that when we do call in, and we'll just trust that he'll help us through whatever it is that's coming. Don't waste a good crisis is what some people say. And that's easy to say in the calm moments, of course, but there is a great deal of truth in it. If we are in a crisis right now, it is a great time to go deeper with Jesus and to learn just how great he is. He is available. He will help. And if we're in a calm time, let's go with Jesus anyway and learn what we need to know in preparation for those tough times. Oswald Chambers is very gung-ho and upbeat about this. Thank God that he does give us difficult things to do, Oswald says. His salvation, his rescue is a joyous thing, but it is also something that requires bravery, courage, holiness. It tests us for all we are worth. Do you see how a crisis can bring the best out of us? Bravery, courage, and holiness. We can draw on those as we find them in Jesus, and we can discover them growing in ourselves with his help. It tests us for all we're worth, Oswald Chambers writes. And we need to remember just how worthwhile, how much we are worth. We are worth a lot. We're made in God's image. We're significant enough for God to become a human being just like us. We're valuable enough that Jesus would die for each and every one of us. And we're loved enough to be brought into that great crowd of people from every tribe and nation and language, the people who will be with God forever. We need to use the tests, the crises, for all they're worth, because we are worth so much in God's eyes, and he will raise us and work with us and help us. Getting ready for everything that lies ahead is a big part of our Christian walk, our following of Jesus, in this life and getting ready for the next, the new heaven and the new earth to come. This is what Oswald Chambers goes on to say. Jesus is bringing many sons to glory. He's quoting from Hebrews chapter 2. And God will not shield us from the requirements of sonship. God's grace produces men and women with a strong family likeness to Jesus Christ, not pampered, spoiled weaklings. It takes a tremendous amount of discipline to live the worthy and excellent life of a disciple of Jesus in the realities of life. And it is always necessary for us to make an effort to live a life of worth and excellence. Jesus wants each one of us to inherit like sons and daughters alike. He wants to bring us to glory and get us ready for all that's coming. Discipline can be a difficult word for some of us, I know. It can bring back maybe bad memories of parents or leaders who treated us unkindly or even abusively and called that discipline. Discipline is something different to that, though. What it really means is a regular pattern of behavior and learning, the cultivation of character and good habits, growing up, if we haven't done that properly before, in good character, like a son or daughter who is going to inherit great things. And of course, the word disciple is linked to the word discipline. A disciple is someone who chooses as a way of life to follow and learn from someone else, putting into practice what we learn from that someone. And for us, that someone is most definitely Jesus Christ. Who else is there that would be worth following for our lives? Shut out every other consideration, says Oswald Chambers, and keep yourself before God for this one thing only, my utmost for his highest. I am determined to be absolutely and entirely for him and for him alone. That was the basis of Oswald Chambers' life, and his writings and his works bear witness to the Jesus that he followed so faithfully. So today, just in case no one has ever asked you this before or challenged you in this way before, I just want to ask, do you want to be a disciple, a follower, an apprentice of Jesus? It's a good question because this is more than just going to church or watching an online service or reading books. Those are enjoyable and maybe helpful, but in and of themselves, they are passive. Things done to us, not by us. When we choose to be a follower of Jesus, it's an undertaking to do life with him and for him. It's engaging personally with him for ourselves and for him. It's something active, something we engage with and do and go after. Yes, it's difficult at times. Learning anything new is challenging and difficult. But the alternatives aren't nearly as good. And it's really good when we get the chance to relearn things we need to know and be rewired in so many ways to live well without a lot of the rubbish and dark things that many of us grow up with, the sin that surrounds us, things that have gone wrong in us and in our world. It can all change as we follow Jesus step by step. It starts, as Oswald Chambers suggests, by looking at what Jesus has done, looking to that cross. We talked about this and engaged with it a couple of weeks ago. All the sin of the world, everything that's gone wrong in us and in our world is placed on Jesus on the cross so that he can absorb all that's wrong. And then we can be raised with him to new life, made new, transformed by him as we walk with him step by step, day by day. There are lots of entrancing things out there in the world, but the older I get, the more I realise is that the truth is that none of them match up to what we get in Jesus. So many ways of doing things, so many temptations, so many activities. Many of them are good things in and of themselves, but they can be twisted the wrong way. But actually what we really need as the basis of everything is this decision to follow Jesus, to receive the rescue, the salvation that he's won for us, and to begin to engage with him and work with that rescue that he has wrought for us. Just think about all the other options, all the difficulties, all the struggles, all the other places you may have looked for rescue and salvation and hope, and then compare them to Jesus. Jesus who died for us and rose to bring us new life. Jesus who says this, "Come to me, all who labour and are heavy laden, and I will give you rest. Take my yoke upon you. Learn from me. I am gentle and lowly in heart, and you will find rest for your souls. My yoke is easy, my burden," Jesus says, "is light." We're going to pray now. And this is a chance to move away from religious stuff or some of the other burdens that we've got, or the old ways of doing things and stuff that hasn't worked in the past, and committing ourselves to being followers of Jesus. As a church, we're here to help each other do exactly that, be the best followers of Jesus we can be, and make a difference in our world and in our community. So let's pray together. And if you want to look at Jesus and take up this offer, please do. If you want to renew your discipleship of Jesus right now, today, please do that as well. That's something all of us can do. Let's pray. Lord Jesus, thank you for breaking into our broken world and showing us what it means to live with you in your kingdom, in the kingdom of God. Thank you that you did what it takes to rescue us and win us a place in your kingdom. Thank you that we can enter your kingdom and your way of doing things, your way of operating with all the joys and all the challenges it brings. Thank you that we have that opportunity, Lord. And we choose now to renew, or to choose for the first time, our discipleship, our following of you. We want to follow you, Lord, because you are the greatest. You are the one who died and rose. You are the Son of God. We want to live and work for your praise and glory. So, Lord, as we choose to do that, hear our prayers right now in crises, if we're in them, whatever situation we're in, whatever stage of life we're at. Lord, hear our cries, and as we choose to follow you, give us grace to follow. Work in us, speak to our hearts and minds in the quiet. And Lord, as we continue to follow you, help us to find the people and the resources that we need to help support us, help us to reach out, and help us to find you, to listen to your voice, to walk with you moment by moment, day by day. Thank you, Lord, that you give us rest. And thank you, Lord, that the discipline you put us under is good and doable and easy, especially compared to everything else we've tried. Lord, give us grace to follow, because you are our Saviour and our Lord, now and forever. Thank you, Jesus. Amen.
We're now going to have an opportunity to respond to what Gav has been saying and to what we've been thinking about this morning. And in the passage from Hebrews 2 that I read at the beginning, it says that Jesus is bringing many sons and daughters to glory, and that God will not shield us from the requirements of sonship. God's grace produces men and women with a strong family likeness to Jesus Christ, not pampered, spoiled weaklings. Now, for those of you who come to this service regularly, you'll know that I quite like to get creative when we do prayers and response time to the message that we've heard. And today it's probably a bit more out there, I have to say. But go with it. It might work. Hopefully it will be a blessing as we pray together. What I'm going to do is I'm going to get just a few different objects just from around the house, just everyday objects. And then we're going to ask ourselves, what characteristics of God does this object bring to mind? Now, I've got a few here which I'll show you, and I'll show you what I mean in a moment. But just look around you where you are now, and it could be anything. Just sitting around in the room near to you. Just pick it up, and we're going to use it in a minute. It can be anything. Don't put too much thought into it. Just have a look around and just see something and just grab it, okay? And we'll use it to pray in a minute. So, our everyday items, what characteristics of God does this bring to mind? And I've got a few here. The first one, which I thought I'd use, is a pair of earphones or earbuds. There they are in there. They pop out, I put them in my ears. And I kind of think, well, I look at it, I think, what characteristic of God does this bring to mind? And I might think about how God is always listening, about how he's always there for us when we need someone to talk to. You might think something different. I've also got a piece of paper, just a blank piece of paper there. And as I look at that, I might think, well, God's creative. He had a blank canvas to work from before he created all of the world and the universe and everything that we see around us. I think God is a creative God who designs wonderful things from nothing. And then finally, I've got a stethoscope, a child's stethoscope. I look at this, I think, well, healing. God is a healing God. He doesn't always bring healing in the way that we expect or want, but we trust that he is a God who brings healing and wholeness into our lives. So, there we are. We've got a few everyday objects there that might bring to mind some characteristics of God. And what we're going to do now, I'm going to put a few more objects, pictures of objects on the screen. And we'll spend a few moments just asking these questions. What characteristic of God does this item bring to mind? A second question. Who do I know that displays this characteristic? And pray for that person, that they will use that godly characteristic to be a blessing to others. A third question to ask is, who do I know who needs more of this godly characteristic in their lives? Yeah, and pray for that person, that they will have a godly characteristic develop within their life. And then the final question to ask is for ourselves. Does this characteristic, is it evident in my life? Do I need to develop this godly characteristic more? And then pray for yourself, that God will make each of us more like him in this way. So I'm going to pop these images up on the screen with those questions for you to think and pray about. If you're with other people or someone else, then you might want to talk about that with them and pray together. That would be absolutely an absolutely amazing thing to do. And then when we've looked at these three objects, which I'm going to pop up on the screen, then take your own object and ask those same questions about what characteristic of God does that item bring to mind for you. And let's pray together and bring to mind those characteristics of God which God wants to develop in us, because we are not spoiled, weak children. We are sons and daughters of God, and he wants us to grow to be more like him as a result. So let's pray together. We're coming towards the end of our service now. We have got a birthday, and it is Frank's birthday this week. So shall we sing happy birthday to Frank?
Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy
happy birthday, Frank, and hope you have a wonderful day. We're going to sing a couple more songs in a moment, but before that, I'm going to pray. We'll sing the songs, and then that will be the end of our service today. So shall we pray together? Thank you, dear Jesus, that you are with us, that you call us to be your sons and daughters, your brothers and your sisters. We are immensely honoured to be part of your family. And we know that that brings upon us a desire to become more like you. So send your Holy Spirit afresh into our lives as we go our own separate ways now, to live and to work for your glory in our homes, in our families and in our communities. And may we see a transformation in our lives and the lives of others that only you can bring. Amen.
Shine from the inside out, that the world will see you live in me. Shine from the inside out, that the world will see you live in me. You know me and you love me, you fill me, so send me to shine from the inside out, that the world will see you live in me. Shine from the inside out, that the world will see you live in me. Shine from the inside out, that the world will see you live in me. Shine from the inside out, that the world will see you live in me. Know me, love me, fill me, send me. Know me, love me, fill me, send me. Oh, know me, love me, fill me, send me. To shine from the inside out, that the world will see you live in me. Shine from the inside out, that the world will see you live in me. You know me and you love me, you fill me, so send me. Know me, love me, fill me, send me. Know me, love me, fill me, send me. Know me, love me, fill me, send me.